January 25, 1980. A masked man vaults the counter at a Durban bank, without shouting or wild shots. Just a calm voice. "Fill it, now." 60 seconds later, he vanishes with $10,000. 30 minutes later, a police captain arrives to investigate. He interviews the traumatized teller. ABD promises justice. But he's the robber. The fake beard is in his glove compartment. But here's where it gets insane. He doesn't stop. Over 3 years, he robs 28 banks, then races back to lead the investigations. He plants false leads. He sends his own detectives chasing phantoms. He describes the suspect to sketch artists, himself, and it gets worse. When they finally catch him, he fakes a back injury, escapes a maximum security prison, and forms a gang with 2 inmates he recruited from the inside. They rob 20 more banks in 5 months. The government issues shoot-on-sight orders. Interpol launches an international manhunt. And somehow, millions of South Africans start cheering for him. He becomes a folk hero, a symbol, a ghost the system couldn't kill. How did one cop turn an entire police force into his cover? And what happened in Florida that ended him? André Stander wasn't born a criminal. He was born a prodigy. The son of Major General Frans Stander, one of South Africa's highest-ranking police officials, André graduated from the police academy at the top of his class in 1963. By his mid-20s, he'd earned his captain's bars, making him one of the youngest officers ever to hold that rank. Stationed in Johannesburg in the late 1970s, he commanded a robbery investigation unit. He knew the system's every nerve and tendon, shift rotations, radio protocols, surveillance blind spots, average response times to different districts. He helped write some of the procedures himself, and somewhere along the way, he realized these procedures had a flaw shaped exactly like his lunch break. It started in late 1977. Captain Stander assigns his detectives their morning tasks, checks his watch as noon approaches, and announces he's stepping out for lunch. His team doesn't question it. Bosses take long lunches. But Stander isn't heading to a restaurant. He drives to John Smuts Airport, boards a flight to Durban, 500 kilometers away. In the airplane lavatory, he transforms. Cheap wig, fake beard, sunglasses. The disguise itches. The absurdity of a police captain playing dress-up as a crook isn't lost on him. But he proceeds anyway. At 1:15 p.m., Stander walks into a Durban bank with the posture of a man who owns the building. No accomplices, no backup, just the confidence of someone who knows exactly how long it takes police to respond and exactly which exits they'll cover first. He approaches a teller, reveals the Z88 pistol tucked under his jacket, and speaks softly. "This is a robbery. No alarms, no heroes. You won't get hurt." The teller complies. Not a single shot. No witnesses even realize a crime is happening. Within 4 minutes, Stander exits with 15,000 rand in his bag, swaps back into his civilian clothes in a rented car, and races to the airport. By 3 p.m., Captain Stander strolls back into Johannesburg Police Headquarters, carrying a takeaway sandwich as cover for his absence. In less than 3 hours, he has committed an armed robbery in another city and returned as if from an extended lunch. It was as simple as it gets, he would later tell investigators. Emboldened, Stander refines what he calls his Lunchtime Protocol into a personal science. He targets banks in distant districts to minimize recognition. He times his hits precisely when his own detectives are buried in routine meetings. On multiple occasions, he schedules department debriefings at exactly 1 p.m., ensuring his entire squad is stuck in a conference room while he's extracting cash from a vault 20 kilometers away. He carries his police-issue firearm during robberies. both for protection and insurance. If any beat cop stops him during a getaway, he can flash his badge and be waved through as a fellow officer. The irony compounds. When robbery reports crackle over the radio, Captain Stander volunteers to respond. He's often first on scene, unsurprising given that he was just there. Witnesses eagerly recount the crime to the very man who committed it. Stander keeps his composure, asks pointed questions, and steers his colleagues toward phantom leads. The suspect was calm, efficient, he tells fellow investigators, describing himself with clinical accuracy. He knew our response times and protocols. We're looking for someone with training, possibly ex-military. His teammates nod, impressed by their captain's insight. Each successful heist feeds his ego. His tactics grow bolder. He starts shedding the disguises, betting that no witness will dare accuse a respected police captain. On one occasion, he robs a Johannesburg bank branch in broad daylight while dressed in a tailored suit, suitcase in hand, then drives directly to the airport and boards a flight to a police conference in Cape Town. As the plane climbs to 30,000 feet, his colleagues on the ground scratch their heads over the mysterious new robbery. Stander's alibi is airtight. He's literally airborne. But the system he's gaming is vast, and it keeps records. A junior officer in Johannesburg, poring over case files one night, notices a pattern. Captain Stander's whereabouts during several robberies are suspiciously vague. In one case, his logbook shows a long lunch exactly when a bank was hit 20 kilometers away. In another, he claimed to be visiting a sick relative on a day 3 separate banks were struck. The constable hesitates. Could it really be coincidence that the captain is never around when the lunch break robber strikes, yet always first on scene afterward? He reports his findings up the chain. The investigation that follows is conducted in absolute secrecy. What happens when police discover their own captain is the criminal they've been hunting for 3 years? And what does Stander do when he realizes the walls are closing in? May 6, 1980. Before dawn, 2 detectives approach a modest house in a Johannesburg suburb. André Stander wakes to frantic pounding on his door. Through the peephole, he sees his colleagues, and their faces tell him everything. "André Stander, we have a warrant for your arrest." He opens the door, hands raised. No dramatics, no final escape attempt. The golden boy of the South African police has been caught. The shock inside the department is seismic. Investigators link him to at least 28 armed bank robberies over 3 years, netting an estimated 100,000 rand. In court, Stander doesn't plead greed or desperation. He makes a political claim. He says he lost faith in law enforcement after being ordered to fire on unarmed protesters during the 1976 Tembisa uprising. He paints himself as a man disgusted by apartheid's brutality, robbing banks as an act of rebellion against an unjust system. Some South Africans believe him. A few see him not as a thief, but as a folk hero striking back at a rotten regime. His fellow officers roll their eyes. Many insist Stander was never even at Tembisa, that his service record contradicts the claim. The judge isn't swayed. Stander is convicted on multiple counts of robbery and sentenced to 75 years, reduced to 17 with concurrent terms. They send him to Zonderwater Maximum Security Prison, a fortress of concrete and razor wire baking under the Transvaal sun. The message is clear. The system André Stander mocked will now bury him. But prison has a way of distilling people to their core, and André Stander's core is not remorse, it's calculation. Within months, Stander assesses his new world. He's surrounded by criminals of every stripe. What is this, he thinks, if not a talent pool? If he could rob banks single-handedly as a cop on lunch break, what might he accomplish with a team? His reputation precedes him. The infamous lunch break bandit draws attention. Two inmates in particular gravitate toward him: Patrick Lee McCall, a brash 34-year-old bank robber with a violent streak, and Alan Hale, a 31-year-old ex-mercenary and thief with a calculating mind. McCall is volatile, fearless, the kind of man who kicks down doors with guns blazing. Hale is the opposite: cold, analytical, always plotting 3 moves ahead. Stander sees the balance. In the exercise yard and in whispered cell block conversations, the trio bond over shared grievances. Stander teaches them police tactics, how to monitor radio frequencies, predict response times, identify surveillance blind spots. McCall and Hale contribute their own expertise. They call themselves the Stander Gang, half-jokingly at first. Then, seriously, they're assembling the blueprint of a war against the banks and against the state. For 2 years, the plan simmers. Then Stander spots his opening. He fakes a severe back injury, walking with an exaggerated limp, groaning on cue. For months, he petitions for outside medical treatment. By mid-1983, prison officials relent. Stander and McCall are allowed supervised visits to a physiotherapy clinic in Pretoria, shackled and escorted by guards. August 11, 1983. Inside the clinic, a physiotherapist turns away. Stander and McCall share a quick look. Stander doubles over, faking a spasm. When a guard moves to assist, Stander strikes with the takedown techniques he once taught cadets. McCall lunges at the second guard. In seconds, both guards are disarmed and bleeding on the floor. The prisoners bolt through a side door, commandeer a doctor's Ford Granada in the parking lot, and vanish into Pretoria traffic. By the time sirens flood the streets, they've ditched the prison fatigues and melted into the city. 6 weeks later, Alan Hale escapes Zonderwater through a separate scheme. The Stander Gang is reunited on the outside. Now the real spree begins. But with the entire South African police hunting them and apartheid authorities issuing shoot-on-sight orders, how long can 3 fugitives sustain a crime wave before the bullets catch up? Between August 1983 and January 1984, the Stander Gang robs an estimated 20 banks across South Africa. Their methodology is surgical. They monitor police radio frequencies, identify response gaps, and strike with precision timing. Hale, the planner, selects targets with multiple exits and weak security. McCall handles intimidation, bursting through doors with a shotgun to freeze the room. Stander, always the smoothest talker, controls the tellers. Their signature becomes famous. They wear outrageous disguises, crack jokes mid-robbery, and treat hostages with unsettling courtesy. More than one teller reports that Stander murmured apologies for the fright. "Take a deep breath, we won't hurt you." According to later accounts, he sometimes tips his hat on the way out and leaves a few rand notes behind as a gratuity for cooperative staff. The press dubs them the Stander Gang, and every morning South Africans rush to read about the latest heist. Stander himself can't resist the coverage. He's often spotted buying newspapers, devouring accounts of his own exploits over breakfast. Something strange happens on the streets. People start cheering them on. In the dark years of apartheid, many citizens, black and white, relish seeing the authorities humiliated by one of their own. Here is a white police captain thumbing his nose at an oppressive system and getting away with it in style. The gang's non-lethal tactics and gentleman robber image only fuel the legend. But the government is not amused. What began as a local embarrassment becomes an international humiliation. A white police captain turned outlaw, making fools of the police. The propaganda nightmare writes itself. Authorities issue a new directive. This is no longer about arresting criminals. It's about neutralizing a threat. Elite Special Task Force units, South Africa's equivalent of SWAT, are assigned to the hunt. These officers carry military-grade firepower and orders to shoot first. The Stander gang has been declared persona non grata. Stander knows how the police think. He taught many of the men now hunting him. The gang rotates safe houses constantly, bouncing between rented luxury hideouts in upscale suburbs and seedy motels under false names. For a while, luck holds, but their lifestyle becomes their liability. In their downtime, they live extravagantly: expensive champagne, flashy cars, parties with escorts. One night, someone lets slip a detail, or perhaps a woman recognizes Stander's face from the news. Either way, the information reaches the police. The safe house is in Houghton Estate, an affluent Johannesburg neighborhood. January 30th, 1984. Before dawn, armored vehicles creep toward a suburban house fringed by tall palms. Inside, Lee McCall peers through the blinds, bloodshot eyes straining in the darkness. Something feels wrong. Then, a stun grenade detonates. The quiet street erupts in gunfire. McCall grabs a pistol, runs room to room, searching for his partners. But Stander isn't there. He left the safe house minutes earlier to secure travel documents. McCall is alone. SWAT officers pour through shattered windows. McCall fires wild shots, but he's outgunned. A barrage of automatic fire tears through the walls. When the smoke clears, Patrick McCall lies dead on the kitchen floor. The police have taken down one member of the notorious trio, but André Stander has slipped the noose again. With one partner dead and another fleeing the country, what does the most wanted man in South Africa do next? And how does a traffic violation in Florida become the thread that unravels everything? Lee McCall's death shatters the adventure. Alan Hale manages to flee South Africa in the chaos, eventually surfacing in England, where he continues robbing banks until his arrest months later. André Stander finds himself utterly alone. His face is on every television screen, pinned to every police bulletin board from Cape Town to Cairo. Interpol alerts have gone out. Border agents are on high alert. For perhaps the first time in his life, the man who gamed every system feels something unfamiliar: cornered. So what does he do? He doubles down on audacity. In the days following the Houghton raid, a man fitting Stander's description walks onto a police impound lot in Johannesburg wearing a stolen police uniform and a captain's insignia. In the chaos of shifting evidence from the raid, he bluffs his way into retrieving a confiscated white BMW, ostensibly for undercover use. The lot attendants, seeing the uniform and hearing authoritative orders, wave him through. Stander drives off in a car the police themselves seized. With the BMW and whatever cash remains from the spree, Stander forges a new identity: Peter Harris. He obtains a doctored passport, shaves his distinctive mustache, and slips out of South Africa, likely through a bribed official or a border crossing into neighboring Swaziland. By early February 1984, André Stander has escaped the country entirely. His destination is as bold as it is unexpected: Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Sunny beaches, palm trees, and anonymity 8,000 miles from Johannesburg. He arrives with a suitcase of cash and the confidence of a man who has beaten every trap. Posing as an ordinary expatriate, he rents a beachfront condo and purchases a bright orange Ford Mustang from a local dealer, paying cash. He tells people he's a businessman relocating from overseas. For a few weeks, André Stander lives the quiet life he never had. Morning jogs on the sand, afternoons by the pool. No disguises, no banks. But old habits claw at restless men. The money he escaped with is dwindling. South African rands only stretch so far in America, and the gang's impounded luxury yacht the Lily Rose, never reached him. Florida authorities seized the $200,000 vessel before delivery. He's running low on funds and high on boredom. Every time he passes a bank in Fort Lauderdale, he feels the familiar itch. The great André Stander, who ran circles around the South African police, now strolling past a Sunshine Bank where tellers smile casually, utterly unaware of the outlaw in their midst. The temptation must have tugged at him daily. Then fate catches him in the most mundane way imaginable. One mild February evening, he rolls through a red light in downtown Fort Lauderdale. A police cruiser chirps its siren and pulls over the orange Mustang. Stander, alias Peter Harris, plays it cool. Florida cops have no idea about a South African fugitive. To them, he's just another traffic violator. He hands over his bogus Florida license, chats amicably, receives a citation, and drives away. Crisis averted. Or so he thinks. That routine stop plants the seed of his undoing. Fort Lauderdale police log the incident as standard procedure. The name Peter Harris triggers a minor flag, perhaps because the license number doesn't quite check out, or because the officer noted the man's foreign accent and nervous demeanor. Within days, a local journalist pieces together hints, the traffic stop, an Interpol bulletin, whispers of a South African bank robber possibly hiding in Florida. A small article appears in the newspaper. One afternoon at a Fort Lauderdale gas station, a used car dealer named Tony Tomasello flips through that paper. His jaw drops. The article describes a brown-haired man stopped for a traffic infraction who might actually be the notorious André Stander. The alias given is Peter Harris. Tomasello sold a car to a Peter Harris 2 weeks ago. At that moment, an orange Mustang pulls into the gas station. The driver steps out. It's his recent customer, the quiet South African. Tomasello walks over, newspaper in hand. "Is this you?" Stander meets his gaze with a tired half-smile. "Yes, that's me. I can't believe they caught up to me so quickly." Tomasello backs away, heart pounding. The moment Stander drives off, he dashes to a payphone. Within hours, Fort Lauderdale police and the FBI are fully alerted. Surveillance goes up on Stander's condo. A multi-agency task force assembles. The noose is tightening one final time on foreign soil. For the next few days, André Stander senses the walls closing in. He spots unmarked cars idling up the block. Strangers watch from cafe windows. He switches vehicles, rents a cheap apartment under another alias, considers fleeing to yet another country. But fate moves faster. February 13th, 1984, 2 weeks since Stander arrived in America. That evening, he returns to a modest Fort Lauderdale apartment riding a bicycle. Ever the fitness enthusiast, he likely chose the inconspicuous bike to avoid attracting attention to a car. What he doesn't know is that law enforcement is already in the area, closing the net. Tony Tomasello is out with police, helping scan the neighborhood for the orange Mustang or Stander himself. They spot a figure on a bike in the twilight. Tomasello recognizes his recent customer immediately. Officers move in, red and blue lights slicing across the condo walls. Stander realizes he's been found and pedals hard. A chase unfolds through quiet residential streets, a far cry from the high-speed pursuits of his past. He leaps off the bike, tries to bolt on foot, but patrol cars cut off escape routes. Finally, winded and cornered in a dim alley, André Stander raises his hands. It looks like surrender. A rookie patrolman, Officer Michael Van Stetina, approaches with his service pistol drawn, instructing Stander to lie down. For a breath, the universe holds still. This could be the peaceful end, the legendary outlaw captured alive by an ordinary beat cop. But André Stander has never gone quietly. In a burst of desperation, he lunges for the officer's shotgun mounted in a nearby patrol car. Van Stetina shouts. Stander and the cop wrestle over the firearm. A gunshot cracks the night, then another. Muzzle flashes strobe the alley. Stander staggers backward, hit in the chest. Van Stetina fires once more. André Stander collapses onto wet pavement, blood pooling under the neon glow of a liquor store sign. The most wanted man in South Africa lies dying, not at the hands of an elite task force or a vengeful former colleague, but from the gun of a startled small-town American cop. Medics arrive minutes later. They work frantically, but the bullet wounds are fatal. At 37 years old, André Stander bleeds out on a foreign street, 8,000 miles from the banks he robbed and the system he defied. The news sends shockwaves back home. In South Africa, reaction splits between sorrow and strange disappointment. He had become such a larger-than-life figure that many assumed his ending would match. A last stand on a Johannesburg rooftop, perhaps, or vanishing into some exotic hideaway forever. Instead, he died in a scuffle over a shotgun, brought down by happenstance and a traffic ticket. Even the South African Minister of Justice offers public condolences to Stander's family, an extraordinary gesture toward a convicted criminal. And the public? A Johannesburg grandmother captured the mood when she told a reporter, "We were all rooting for him. He had style." Style. That's what André Stander had. In a country crushed under apartheid, where the police represented oppression for millions, one of their own had turned against them with audacity and flair. He wasn't robbing banks for political reasons, no matter what he claimed in court. The evidence suggests he did it because he could, because the system had gaps, and he was smart enough to exploit them. Because the thrill of walking into a bank as a captain and walking out as a criminal was a high no promotion could match. His story became a 2003 film. His escapes became textbook case studies. His name became shorthand for the cop who got too close to the criminal mind and crossed over entirely.